Matrice. So welcome everyone to another installment of our Innovation Leader Speaker Series. My name is Carrie Slade, and I'm the Assistant Academic Director of Temple University's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute. I'm also a assistant professor there, teaching in the areas of innovation, entrepreneurship, including social entrepreneurship and international business. So I'm really excited that you could join us here today. This series grew out of one of our professional graduate programs, the Innovation Management and Entrepreneurship Master's degree. They're both programs, the certificates and the masters are designed for working professionals. We're doing a lot of stuff online these days, as you might well expect. And eventually when the pandemic goes away, we will be offering in-person classes as well as online classes, so you can choose. It's a really great program. I teach innovation intelligence of the program, so I'd be happy to talk with anyone who's interested in the program or in some of the classes that we offer. And you can also scan that QR code there for more information. I want to thank our sponsors at Temple University, of course, the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute, where I work, and also the Center for Student Professional Development. They really help preparing our students for the real world, and they've been a great partner for some of our speakers. Also, some other sponsors we have are the Product Development and Management Association, PDMA, the Philadelphia chapter. So if you're interested in getting involved with professionals, like-minded professionals doing product development and management, that may be a great organization for you to join. And then the Innovation Research Interchange, the IRI, which I believe is how I connected with Matrice originally. So this is another great network of innovation professionals and companies that you may want to join if you're interested in that area. And finally, Technically Philly, a newsletter and website focused on small businesses, medium-sized businesses in the Philadelphia region. If you didn't sign up for their newsletter, I recommend you do so because they have a lot of great stories there. We have an event coming up. I'm trying to find, there's one person who's trying to get in the waiting room, but I'll address that later. We have an event coming up December 10th that I wanted to highlight as well. Our last event of the year in the Innovation Leader Speaker Series, but we will continue next semester. And this event is with Stephen Maud, who's a Temple alumni and also is on the board of visitors of the College of Engineering. He's going to be talking about his company, Demco Automation, and how he took an industrial robotics company, how he grew an industrial robotics company over the past 10 years. So that should be really interesting. And we're also going to have some more networking, some holiday networking after that presentation. So I hope you can join us for that as well. Finally, I'd like to introduce Matrice, and she did say that she will be able to stay for the networking, so that'll be really great if some of you can join us for the networking after the programming. We'll have different breakout rooms that you can choose and move among them, so that should be really great conversation. Matrice Jackson is Senior Research and Engineering Manager and Internal Liaison for Innovation at Kimberly Clark Corporation in Atlanta. She is an experienced people leader and product developer who has been recognized for her leadership in innovation and building talent. She's passionate about helping people develop and authentically use their superpowers to bring value within the innovation space. Over the past 20 years at Kimberly Clark, she has led teams and worked across multiple research, development, and engineering disciplines in both consumer-facing and business-facing industries. She has proven success in working with and building innovation capacity for global multicultural teams in the areas of product, process, and technology innovation. She leads teams with intention, intuition, and vision, and believes diverse teams that are engaged and empowered are necessary to deliver high-performing, customer-valued innovations to the marketplace. Matrice has a BS in Mechanical Engineering from Tuskegee University and an MS in Mechanical Engineering from Auburn University. And I just want to say special thanks and welcome to Matrice for being here today. It's been a real pleasure getting to know her over the past couple months, and I can't wait to hear what she's going to share with us. So with that, Matrice, would you like me to bring up your slides?
Yes, please. Thanks, Carrie.
All right, great. And let me just make sure there's no one in the waiting room while we're here. Okay, looks like we're good. All right, go for it.
So hello, everyone. I am super excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today, especially about a topic I do enjoy doing, which is building talent within technical. However, I am also excited about learning from you as well. So please feel free to use the chat function to chat questions, insights, comments, because I believe that learning from each other is just as powerful. So next slide, please, Carrie. Since you did such a good job introducing me, I won't spend too much time introducing myself, especially about the things that you can find on a resume. But I will, share a little bit more about myself. So I was raised in a small rural town in Liberty County, Georgia, which is called Midway. And it has a population of about 9,500 people. I left Midway and headed to Alabama for college, where Carrie mentioned I have my degrees in mechanical engineering. But after college, this Southerner found herself in the Midwest in Neenah, Wisconsin. I joined Kimberly Clark, mechanical engineer, in our feminine care business. And throughout my career, as Carrie mentioned, I have worked primarily in research development and engineering functions. And I've held most of the roles in product development, some process, some technology development as well, in both our consumer and our business sectors. So I know a lot of people may not be familiar with Kimberly Clark, but they have brands as Kleenex, Scott, Viva, Clean Guard, White Ball, Jackson Safety, all the brands that I've supported in my career. And I've also been afforded the opportunity to travel globally with Kimberly Clark because my roles have been both regional and global. And fortunately, I've been able to travel over 25 countries with work alone, allowing me the opportunity to work with our cross-functional teams as well as our customers, which is always a joy. So a little bit about a few things about myself that aren't on my resume, just to provide some context about me that you will understand as we go through the presentation. So I am a proud introvert. I have an accountability circle that keeps me grounded in self-awareness and always has my back. I feel my creativity through my appreciation for fashion. I am a personal stylist and I enjoy making jewelry, love music, love dancing. And to keep things exciting, I do have a bucket list of experiences that I am actively trying to check off and add to. Next slide, please, Carrie. We can't have a conversation about high-performing teams in innovation without having one about diversity and inclusion. Over the past several years, there has been recognition given to the impact that diversity and inclusion have on how teams perform and ultimately on how organizations perform. So I'm sharing with you on this slide Kimberly Clark's definitions for diversity and inclusion for 3 reasons. 1, I do work there. 2, because I do agree with them. And 3, because Kimberly Clark was named one of the world's most ethical companies in 2020 by Ethisphere. And that assessment that was conducted included data points on culture and diversity. Kimberly Clark defines diversity as the unique characteristics, life experiences, and perspectives that make employees who they are. Inclusion is defined as the purposeful act of creating an environment where employees feel seen, heard, valued, supported, and respected, enabling them to be their authentic selves. So as leaders of innovation, why should we care about diversity and inclusion? So I have two statistics to share with you. The Fast Company reported in 2017 that organizations with above average gender diversity and levels of employee engagement outperform companies with below average diversity and engagement by 46 to 58%. A 2018 study by Harvard Business Review found that the most diverse companies were also the most innovative, allowing them to market a greater range of products to consumers. And they cited that companies with higher than average diversity had 19% higher innovation revenues. Next slide, please. So many organizations do have stated diversity goals because they do recognize the impact diversity has on the company's performance. But I do question, whether they are focused on two-dimensional diversity. So what's two-dimensional diversity? It's defined as both inherent and acquired diversity. Inherent diversity is how you were born, who you are. It includes factors such as race, gender, age, ethnicity, and disabilities. Acquired diversity is about how you live your life, what you do. It's the different perspectives on ideas and unique insights you gain through having different experiences. For example, having cross-functional work experience, living in a different country, or being a veteran. These are all experiences that shape how you view situations, how you identify insights, and how you create solutions. So this is the first part. I'm going to pause here and ask for a little interaction from the attendees. Like, what does diversity look like for you? And for those that have teams, what does diversity look like for your teams? And Carrie, can you let me know what's coming in through chat?
Matrice, would you prefer they chat you, or do you want people to raise their hands?
Oh, either one that's easy for you to manage.
Okay. So yeah, we'll take chats. If someone wants to make a comment, feel free to raise your hand. What does diversity look like to you? Rachel says, diversity is being asked to help plan the party. I try to take that approach.
Nice.
Peggy says, a reflection of the global population as a whole. James, a rich flow of ideas and perspectives coming from any and all backgrounds.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. I definitely believe that to unlock the magic within teams, I believe that leaders must consider both inherent and acquired diversity within their team structures for some of the same reasons that you mentioned in the chat, right? So that the teams reflect for us, the consumers that we wish to serve. So I have a statistic for you around two-dimensional diversity. And as early as 2013, Harvard Business Review noted the importance of inherent and acquired diversity. They reported that companies with two-dimensional diversity are 45% more likely to report that they had captured a larger portion of the market and 70% more likely to have entered into a new market in the past year. So I think we are clear that diversity, especially inherent and acquired, are very important. And for me, as we go through this presentation, it's about having that lens and context as you receive the information I'm going to share with you. Were there any other comments, Carrie?
Yeah, Emily says, people from all different backgrounds, ages, races, and perspective. And then Anthony says, diversity translates to higher total available market for business financial models.
Absolutely. Next slide, please. So a little bit about my diversity and inclusion journey. Again, I'm trying to make sure you get a sense of who I am as we continue through other presentations and how I approach building teams. So a little bit about my diversity and inclusion journey. Since early childhood, I had an awareness about how my race and gender triggered biases and prejudices in others. But it wasn't until I moved to a non-diverse, non-inclusive community in Wisconsin that I became keenly aware of how my diversity traits would chart my path over the next several years. So this Southern, STEM-educated, fashion-loving, military-influenced, expressive Black female was a bit of a shock to the local cultural and corporate norms. There were people who expected me to conform to those norms that I viewed as bubble-like and outdated because of how I had lived and experienced life in other places. I wore open-toed sandals to work without hosiery. I wore my hair in natural hairstyles and hairstyles that were common in my culture. I was expressive. I used my hands when I spoke, and I didn't hide my emotions. And there were people who felt that all of these things had no place in the corporate world. But being my authentic self was necessary for me to maintain my mental and my physical health, and to be the best employee I could be. Kimberly Clark's commitment to diversity was then and is now clear. And that commitment started at the top with the CEO. because I had leadership support, I had support to be me. So I left Wisconsin with a heightened awareness and an increased dedication to diversity and inclusion together because of both the positive and the negative experiences I had. So that's how I like to approach how I lead my teams, because that's very foundationally important to me. Next slide, please. So again, using diversity and inclusion as a foundation, I would like to walk you through some of the steps that I do take to cultivate a team. So we will cover identifying and resolving skill gaps within a team, promoting and facilitating individual team members' growth, and setting and modeling expectations as a leader. So some content will speak to you as individuals and some content will speak to you as leaders. Next slide, please. So I'm going to cover a lot of information here in this section. And if you have questions, please put them in chat. So over the course of my career as a team leader, I have not had the opportunity to build an entirely new team. I have inherited team members. I often get a melting pot of a team. And they come from other teams to form a newly created team. I am normally not familiar with them or they with me or with each other as team members. So the first thing that I do is assess each team member in order to understand the team's overall skills. And so in the graphic in the left, I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those bubbles. And we're going to start with the functional knowledge. And I start with functional knowledge assessment because I seek to understand if they have the required functional or technical knowledge for the role they're assigned. And I do this because I want to determine if they have the potential for growth within the role and beyond the role. I won't go into details about all of the tools that you can use to assess functional knowledge, but I will share with you one tool that we use at Kimberly Clark to do this. The research and engineering has developed technical competencies by role and by level, and it helps us assess the functional capabilities of each individual. So the individual is able to take an assessment, and the assessment will determine if they have basic, working, or in-depth technical knowledge for each of the competencies identified for their role. This allows me as a leader to have a candid and detailed conversation with the individual about the technical skill required for the role, any gaps that may exist. Next, I take note of the team's diversity. So I already lead a team with diversity and inclusion as the foundation, but this is being a little more intentional about noting what my team makeup looks like. So not just inherent diversity, but also what acquired diverse traits they also bring to the table. And you can gather information from your human resource tools, individual development plans, resumes. But whatever information you gather about your team members, I do highly encourage leaders and team members to validate that information through conversation. Because the experiences and skills that someone has had and has gained along their journey is important to tell their story. And it's important for you to tell your own story because it removes the opportunity for someone to make one up. Your story about the skills you have acquired through experiences should highlight how you are different from others. So that's important. The next piece that I do spend a great deal of time on is the behavioral skills. And we will talk about this in the next couple of slides. But behavioral skills include areas what is commonly known as our strengths and our weaknesses. I refer to them as our strengths and development areas. Traditionally, we are guided to focus on our development areas. However, I agree with Don Clifton's philosophy to focus on developing our strengths. So he believed that there is more to gain by investing in our natural talents instead of focusing on development areas. And the last bubble is around motivational fit. So motivational fit is about whether the role a team member is in aligns with their goals. And if they can not only survive, but thrive within the organization and community where they work and live. So completing a comprehensive skills assessment of the team will provide a better understanding of the team members' skills gaps and a view of where they are from a motivational standpoint. I'm going to pause here because there was a lot of content. Questions?
Questions? Mary asks, can you please recommend a diversity consultant that does company-wide diversity training?
Can you please note that, and I can follow up
with
some recommendations.
Yeah, that's the good follow-up. Other questions? I have one, Matrice. Versus inherent versus acquired diversity, is one more important, or are they both equally important?
Good question, Carrie. I can speak only from my experience, and this is where I would love to hear any other leaders or even individuals that have seen it differently. But I can tell you that I found that both are equally important. And it's hard though. So I will say it is very hard to maintain an inherently diverse team just because of attrition, right? So people come, go, move, and you can't always find the right talent to backfill the role. So I would say that in my experience, while I walk in holding both equally important, I found that highlighting and managing and showing value in the acquired diversity has been more consistent to manage because of the flow of talent, just harder to have ins and outs due to many different reasons within an organization. So whether there's headcount reductions or just people moving from different positions, it's just a little tougher to find the inherent diversity, but definitely both, going in both.
Great. Rachel asks, how did you develop the technical skills for the functional knowledge assessments?
Oh, sure. So the competencies that I spoke of, so human resources, of course, right, starts there with the overall requirements for each role and by level. And the technical competencies that I was speaking to, we actually work with the subject matter experts in each of the areas. So people that we've considered experts in the areas across the research and engineering function, we pulled them in. So we drafted what we thought was important, and we pulled them in to actually have working sessions where they gave their input and got really specific around approaching those competencies by role, by level, and again, in basic working and in-depth breakouts.
Great.
Answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And then Rex is asking, can you explain acquired diversity a little more and maybe give an example?
Yeah, sure. So I can speak to my team, my previous team. So I have a team, and this gets to your point, Carrie. So my total intention was to be two-dimensionally diverse. I actually was leading a team of all women. So unfortunately, I didn't have all of the inherent diverse traits, but I had some of them covered. Gender diversity was not there. So I was leading a group of about, I think it's seven women. So I made 8. And within that team, I had someone that is actually a native Hispanic. And they were able to, and because we work globally, they were able to have conversations with our Latin American partners in Spanish. And that removed some of the risk of having some misinterpretation or misunderstanding when we were building capability or doing training. And so the fact that she spoke a different language and had grown up in Panama, but went to school in the United States, all of those experiences she gained from being, speaking a different language, her native tongue being different than English, brought some value to the team that we absolutely used to drive value across what we were doing from an objective standpoint.
Great, thank you. I don't see any more questions right now. Okay.
Next slide, please. So just a little bit more about so I promised to deep dive into the behavioral pieces, a little bit more about how I actually did some behavioral skills assessment within the team, because again, I said this was really important to me around the diversity piece, because this is the area I use to zone into diversity traits and figure out how to actually drive value because we have so many different skills and experiences on the team. So for my team, we chose to use Gallup's Clifton Strengths Finders. And the way we did it was we had each team member complete an online assessment to learn their top 5 strengths. Then as a team, we participated in a facilitator-led session to deep dive into the individual findings and the team findings. Then together, we discussed the benefits of utilizing strengths as a leader, how to use strength domains as a team, skills that were missing within the team, and then specific actions that we would take going forward. So next slide, please. A little bit more about what our output looked like. This is an example of the output from the Clifton Strengths Assessment for a team of 8 people. So I'll walk you through how to read this. The top row are the 4 domains for strengths, and they're executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. The next row is a short description on those domains. The third row with the vertical text, those are themes, and there are 34 themes, and they're all grouped within the domains. And so how you read this chart is if you look at team member 1, it goes across in a row. And because we only did top 5 strengths, you should not see any more than 5 X's for one team member. So team member 1 has 2 top strengths in executing, none in influencing, 1 in relationship building, and 2 in strategic thinking. Does that make sense? Okay. And there is a full assessment that's provided that gives details about the domains and themes, and they start to tell a story for each person. And so together, we helped each other understand how our strengths were visible at work and the value that they brought to the team. It was very helpful in starting the dialogue about how to use our strengths to achieve not only our individual goals, but our team objectives. And as a leader, this information provided me an opportunity to encourage cross-team support. So I was able to activate that cross-team capability building. For example, one team member who has a strength in strategic thinking was able to coach another team member through the development of a 3-year strategy. There is one watch out I would share that I have found, and I'm very open and eager to hearing if you have any as well, or if anyone has tried any of these types of assessments that exist. But the one watch out that I found is that the behavioral assessments typically focus on natural talents and not capabilities. And so, for example, in this assessment, there are several individuals who did not have strengths within the influencing domain. But this does not mean that these individuals are not great at influencing. It means that influencing doesn't come naturally or without effort for those individuals. Next slide, please. So we talked about identifying gaps. So what do we do when we have identified some gaps? For functional knowledge gaps, there are a few questions I consider to figure out what to do next and how to chart a path forward. Some of those questions are, can the person's capability be built in the deficient area? How much effort must be invested to reach the baseline requirement? Does the person have the know-how and willingness to build the technical knowledge? Can the improvement be successfully made within an acceptable time frame? Is the person coachable? If the responses to these questions do not provide an acceptable path forward, then appropriate action must be taken. And that action I encourage to be taken within, in partnership with human resources. But the appropriate action may include reassignment or exiting the organization. If there are gaps in the other areas, in diversity, in behavioral skills, or motivational fit, then the leader has a golden opportunity to address these gaps through recruiting and or coaching. And because you've done a full assessment, there is clarity on the skills that are needed to move the team towards its desired performance. Next slide, please. So I did want to share a few tools and tips for resolving skill gaps. We've talked about the first skills assessment tool, Gallup Clifton Strengths, that I walk you through and how my team uses that. There's another one. We also use GlobeSmart's Global Team Assessment. And this assessment measures three key areas for global team effectiveness: communication, process, and inclusion. We found that this tool was really helpful in seeing results across our team to compare with each other. And for a global team, it was also very insightful to be able to compare our results to specific cultural norms by country. And we found that really interesting and helped us identify areas where we would flex our styles to be more aligned to cultural norms for a specific country that we were interacting with. I recently discovered that SY Partners and IDEO University partnered to create a course called From Superpowers to Great Teams. I hadn't heard of it before. It says that the tool is they've developed a tool to help teams identify individual strengths and to learn how to use them to be their best. So this course is definitely on my list to try. It looks really interesting based on the description. Are there any tools that any of you have used that you found to be helpful, or any tools that you have heard of that you would like to share? The 6-hat assessment. I hadn't heard of that one. Is that Imani? Yes, I have used DISC assessment. Okay. Well, Imani have to tell us a little bit more about the 6-hat assessment. That one's a new one for me. Leaders, when there's an opportunity to recruit talent, there are a couple of tips that I would like to share and that I encourage you to do as well. So one of them is look in different places to find different talent. Most organizations have a recruiting strategy they follow, especially larger organizations. However, if possible, use different channels to find the talent that is needed for the team. Consider reaching out to different schools, professional networks, and community organizations to find talent that you believe would be a great addition to your team. And when new talent is identified, use your network to vet them. Reach out to people you trust and ask for feedback on the candidate before you even invest time in an interview. And then finally, remember to review a candidate's career in its entirety. Their career path may provide insights into additional skills and experiences they may have. You may find someone that has knowledge and skills that benefit not just the team, but the organization. I call those people unicorns when they can go across an organization in multiple roles. Next slide, please. So we've talked about identifying strengths, and I'm going to continue pestering this behavioral skills assessment because I do find value in it, and I feel that if you invest your time there, you reap the benefits. So we've talked about strengths, and now we're going to talk about superpowers. Next slide, please. So what is a superpower? I define a superpower as your strength and the unique way you deploy your strength. So let's dissect this area, this idea. Strengths are those actions or skills you do well, right? Those are the things that we talked about. You do these things without struggle. They reflect your natural talents, how you feel, how you think, and how you behave over time. Strengths can be in the areas of knowledge-based skills, skills that are acquired from education and experiences, speaking a different language, different degrees, training. Skills may also be in the area of transferable skills, right? These are skills you take with you from job to job. Those are usually in the areas of how you communicate, people skills, things of that nature. In another area, you may have some strengths. is in personal traits that are distinctive qualities, such as flexibility, tenacity, empathy, collaboration. So again, a superpower is your strength plus the unique way you deploy it. And your superpower is unique to you. You use it to benefit others, thereby is bringing you a sense of satisfaction. So it's the way that you see things. It's how you think about things because of your inherent and acquired diversity. It's that special talent that only you know how to do what you do. It's that swag that you put on everything that you do. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give an example, share with you. I'm going to share my superpower. So my superpower is the use of perception and intuition to assess people and articulate situations for deeper understanding, even when words are not spoken. Next slide, please. So unlocking superpowers unlocks innovation and creativity. Understanding your superpower is as important as understanding your strengths and development areas. Knowing your team member superpowers help you coach individuals more effectively by focusing on the areas in which to invest and cultivate. And you can determine how and where you can deploy them to build capability within themselves and across the team, right? Building talent of other team members on the team. So as a leader, this knowledge enables you to encourage and provide opportunities for team members to show up as their authentic selves. Also, it's important as leaders that we model the behavior we want to see. So we have to be vulnerable. We have to be transparent and authentic if we're asking our team members to do so. Activating your team members' superpowers requires that the leader is intentional in facilitating an environment that fosters inclusion, an environment where all voices are heard and respected. Next slide, please. So how do you identify your superpowers? I've provided 3 probing questions that I use with my team and myself to identify my superpower, right? So what's that unique perspective or contribution that you bring to projects, meetings, or conversations? What have others told you that you do easily? Why does people seek you out, right? We talked about that accountability circle. Why does your accountability partners, why do they come to you for certain situations or for advice? And these are the questions that I start with. And of course, there are others that I ask to go deeper with my team members and even myself. And the only thing I can tell you that it's also a follow-up, that once you've identified your superpower, ask yourself, would my accountability circle agree that this is my superpower? So your circle can have others also help you identify your superpower. I've also found that I intentionally tap into my superpower when situations become off kilter or they start to pivot away from the norm. I turn to my superpower when I must make important decisions. So I am curious if any of you have identified your superpower, and if you don't mind sharing. So what is that is unique to yours that you use without struggle?
So ask yourself these 3 questions and then chat us what your superpower might be.
Lou, I'm curious to hear, how do you use your foresight in general?
Oh, well, Lou, you mean?
Yes, Lou.
Lou, do you want to tell us about your superpower?
It's like, no thanks.
I think you can unmute yourself, but I can help you.
Okay. All right, I see Rachel.
I've got one, if you like.
Sure.
I think my superpower is being able to listen to others, having empathy and understanding an alternative perspective.
That is awesome. I had someone on my team that had very similar superpower. It was interesting that when I asked if you really could, like as we started the conversation about superpowers, I asked what like hero superpower do you wish you had? And she said wings. And I was like, why wings? She was like, so I could soar up and see the bigger picture, and then figure out how to soar down and get to an empathetic view of the specifics. So that was really similar to yours around that empathy and listening. But it was interesting that she went to soar up to do it and come back down.
Great. Lou, I think you might be unmuted now.
Okay, let's try there. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so foresight, almost along the lines of what Imani just wrote down, connecting some dots, you just see them out there. I'm like, okay, this is how this one's going to impact this. This is going to be a roadblock here. And so when you're looking at projects and how they're moving, it's like, okay, I think there's something here that's connecting that are linked or they're not linked, that just bringing up some of those things of what might happen. So
That's nice. Awesome. Would love to have that superpower on my team. Next slide, please. Being mindful of time here. There we go. Am I back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, we talked about identifying our superpowers. So we've identified team members' strengths and superpowers. So now let's use our superpowers. And so here are some ways that we can use our superpowers. As individuals, your superpower becomes a part of your personal brand. A personal brand is a promise and an expectation of an experience that someone will deliver consistently. So there is power in having a strong personal brand because it helps to elevate you and differentiate you from your peers, often opening doors to new opportunities. So give your superpowers visibility by sharing them with your peers and your leaders. An example of how we share or we incorporate our superpowers and share them with our team leaders at Kimberly Clark are, my leaders have a quarterly meeting with each team member to do a 3-minute share on their work. And so it's a perfect opportunity for my team members to highlight how they use their superpowers in a specific project to drive value as an individual. And then as a team leader, it provides me the opportunity to weave together the story of how those superpowers have driven value for the team. So team members were most likely already using their superpowers because it's based on their natural strengths. But however, as a leader, you can be and I can be more intentional about when and how superpowers are being used, especially in the areas of delivering against objectives. So be clear about how you expect the team to show up and show value, because now your team members' superpowers are a part of the team's brand. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay, next slide, please. So as a team leader, using the combination of gap assessments, development of strengths, unlocking superpowers, and leveraging diversity and inclusion, my team members have achieved promotions. They have achieved their desired career moves. They have access to top talent programs, and they've received exceptional performance reviews. So let's recap the journey that I recommend for leaders to move towards a high-performing team. So complete a comprehensive skills assessment to identify any gaps within the team and resolve them through capability building, recruiting when you have the opportunity, or in partnership with human resources. The second thing I recommend, develop and use individual strengths and superpowers to unlock innovation and deliver value to the team and the organization. And 3, most important for team leaders, set expectations for the team. Model what you want to see, then move out of the way and let them be great. Next slide, please. So a high-performing team is created when the leader has empowered team members to be their authentic selves, created an environment for team members to achieve personal satisfaction and be engaged, and modeled the behavior they want to see. And team members feel recognized, they feel understood, and they feel valued. Next slide, please. So we started with diversity and inclusion, so we're going to end with diversity and inclusion. The foundation of building a high-performing team absolutely starts with diversity and inclusion as a foundation. Diversity and inclusion within your team not only impacts individuals' performance, it impacts the team's performance, as well as the organization's performance. So hopefully I have provided each of you with at least one aha moment today. So any questions? Carrie, you're muted.
All right, that would help. Thank you, Matrice. That was great. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Or you can, if you go to the participants pane, there should be at the bottom a place where you can see a hand and you can virtually raise your hand and then we can call on you. Also, feel free to turn your cameras on if you want to. We want this to be kind of an interactive discussion. It looks like Mary Stewart says, can you recommend a book for mid-level managers?
I do have one. There is one that I referenced several times, and it's called FYI. And there are two versions. There's a smaller version and a big version. I received it from a mentor when I first became a team leader, and I still use it to this day. But it's a book full of situations and questions that you may be experiencing as a team leader. And it has suggested answers, suggested capability building exercises, and approaches to each of those situations. So I find that book helpful.
Great. Say the name of it one more time.
FYI is what I'm recalling, is in big font on the book, but I can email a picture of it later.
Okay, great. Other questions? And I did put a survey link in the chat, so if you wouldn't mind clicking on that survey and giving your opinion about our presentation today, that'd be great. Anthony wants to know, how do you iterate process during organizational transformation changes?
So Anthony, and you may have to come off of mute so we can actually have a dialogue about it. What I recommended is something that I do with each of the new teams I receive. So I would say that it's not all that I do, but it's a good chunk of how I approach assessing my team's talent and then cultivating their talent. And as I mentioned, as a leader, I haven't ever had the opportunity to build a new team from scratch, because I have been in the organization where there has been a transformational organizational change, right? And whether it's growing the organization up or shrinking it. I've had both experiences multiple times over my 20 years plus, it's 20 plus years at Kimberly Clark. So I would say that my process has only iterated to become better at actually how I execute it versus not necessarily changing the steps that I take, if that makes sense. And of course, the depths in how it's executed depends on the personalities of the team members that I have.
Okay, great. Anthony, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to make any comments. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
No, that's great. It's good to know that your process is applicable to expansion of contraction of teams. And I guess to be more specific, as organizational mission and vision changes with transformation in order to be more responsive and adaptable to changes in the market space and opportunities, where do you pick up in your process to reevaluate?
Yes. So again, the one thing that's consistent, regardless of the transformation of the organization, is that every organization wants a high-performing team, right? That's never the question. And it's all about how fast you can get to that high-performing team, which is what I've been alluding to. It just only dictates for me the parts of my process that I'm going to implement first and fastest. So when we were in a more lax environment in 2019, before COVID, I had the opportunity to wait until March to have my face-to-face and do capability building, and we could spend the week and really work through some things as a team. In 2020, right, my team meeting was scheduled for March, and it was exactly when we stopped travel. And so we had to readjust our plans in how to execute it. So I didn't cancel my team meeting. I just changed in how we were going to deliver it and made it virtual. And so had to use a lot more skilled facilitators, different virtual technology to make sure that we were interactive and engaged. And we shortened it from a 5-day session to 2.5, because that's probably all we could tolerate, being virtual together for 8-9 hours. So not necessarily that I changed the process, but it is how fast I can bring the process to life for the team members, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.